All right, welcome. Let's get this off and rolling here. I want to say good evening to everybody. Thank you for coming, attending the Valley City Community Group's annual, when needed, candidates night. So, real quick, how many people here from Litchfield? We do have a few. Okay, York? Okay, I'm assuming the rest is Liverpool? Okay, anybody from out of town? All right, thank you very much for coming. I want to apologize for the cramped quarters here. The Buckeye Theater Group has been rehearsing for the last couple of weeks in the cafeteria, which is where we would have normally held this. So we couldn't, I wasn't going to ask them to move. So while we get started, I want to thank Gary Peterson. Gary is with the Valley City Group. Gary is chairman of this evening. Rod Knight, who is Mr. Frog Jump, for those of you familiar. Dave Cruz up in the front here will be our official timer this evening. And we want to thank Mike in the back from Armstrong. They will be taping the entire evening. We're looking to have this on, or hoping to have this on the community channel, channel 4 or 100, hopefully tomorrow. We will put out, Dave will get out on our website and let you know what time, what channel, and it'll be on, Mike, for, what'd you say, a couple weeks perhaps? So you'll have plenty of opportunity if anybody wants to see it that couldn't make it. We're going to begin.
Hold on. Good. It'll also be available on YouTube, so watch our Facebook or our website, and Mike will give me a link to the whole thing, and anybody can watch it on YouTube, so you don't have to have Armstrong. Sorry, Mike, you don't have to have Armstrong.
Can't go back.
Why don't you give the website address?
Till I go back.
ValleyCity.org. Thank you.
Okay, so a few ground rules of how we're going to work the evening and how things will be going. We're looking to keep this from about 7 till, and hopefully not go past 9 o'clock. We should be pretty able to do that. We're going to begin the evening with Cathy Keller, our trustee, who's running for position of trustee, the one seat that's open this year. She's running unopposed, but she was very gracious about saying, I'll come and say a few things about the township and take some questions if the audience has any. Following Mrs. Keller, we'll be going right into the Buckeye School Board candidates. Each, hopefully, they are all sitting in the right name, but we'll introduce them all in a few minutes. They will all have 3 minutes to open up, introduce themselves, give you a 3-minute talk on why they're running for the position. Our timer up here will let everybody know when you have 15 seconds left. So hopefully we don't have to get the gong out. We have some questions that have been submitted by the public that we'll be reading the candidates, followed by, if there are questions that pop up or you came with, we have a mic up front here so the audience can ask any questions that they may find pertinent or didn't hear the answer to. All candidates will have the ability to elaborate on a question, just in case somebody says something that they go, well, no, I don't agree with that, or there's more to add to that, what have you. So we will give people an opportunity for that. We'll alternate who goes first. Gary will get his ping pong balls ready, and when the school board's ready, you'll pull a cup, and that's what we'll start off. But then we'll just rotate who goes first, so everybody's not under the gun at the same time. Please be courteous. No personal questions, and no inappropriate questions. I don't know what those could be, but I had to put that in there. All right, with that, would you please stand? We'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we'll get started here. Mrs. Keller?
Good evening, everybody. I've never been good at public speaking, but my heart and passion for Valley City is great. I've really enjoyed being a trustee of this town, raising my children here, the kids going to Buckeye, me working for Buckeye, just being a part of everything. They say it takes a village to help you run your children. They mean it. It's really good to be here in this town knowing that everybody has your back and you have theirs. I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud that say that I am a Liverpool Township trustee, and we work hard together, Paul Schaefer, Sean Lackey, and Debbie Gillen and I, to do the best we can with the townships, the monies that we have. We maintain our properties, our roads, our bridges, our fire, EMS, and police. We currently have a $7 million budget that we maintain the town with, trying to maintain everything that I've just said. We have just recently hired our first full-time fire chief. Really excited at that. Andy Bayless, I don't believe he's here, I haven't really looked, but we just hired him, and we've also increased our staffing, 24-hour around-the-clock staffing. That's something we look forward to doing, is continuing to grow our fire and EMS in Valley City. I guess I really have nothing else. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at public speaking. Get me one-on-one, I've got your back. I can tell you anything, I'll get you any answers that you need. I just know working for Valley City, Liverpool Township, and the people in it has been an amazing thing for me to do. And I thank you very much.
All right, we do have a couple questions. One that pops up a lot, and you've fielded it numerous times. We felt the same way when we moved here about 17 years ago. Once we opened our house, please, no more houses, no more building. So the question comes up a lot, Kat. What should we do about stopping all the development or the selling of farms and the big developments?
That is a really good answer. Good question. The answer to that is you're not going to. You just have to work together to find what will go best in your town. That's for the flavor that you have going on. I'm a farmer. We own acreage on Lester Road. I would love to see it all be that, but you can't. It's not going to happen. You have to work together to see where you want things to be able to be put and not put. I don't have the answer to that, because if we try to, the builders, all the people that are in the home, the people that in the real estate and all that, I'm sure we would definitely get sued for sure, because you can't stop their businesses.
Okay. What plans do you see the township having for the fire department? We're getting a lot of houses, a lot of developments, things are growing. We were an all-volunteer, and now the new chief is full-time.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we are growing. We're working towards, it's a transition right now, going from volunteer to paid. And we've hired the new chief, we've increased our staffing, and we just need to see how it's all going to play out to be able to see which direction it's going to take us. I'm sure a new fire station will be in the future, but near future, no. But it's coming. It will be coming, because we're growing, and everybody wants to know they're safe. They want to know you can call 911 and they're going to come to your house.
Exactly. All right. We have any questions from the, yes, sir?
Yeah.
Please would state your name. And
Mark Sullivan, I live in Lester Road there too. What do you see as the top two priorities for the trustees this year in the next
I guess, the fire station, the EMS, the police, making sure we continue to stay safe. We do a really good job of our roads and bridges and operating under the funds that we do have. One of the big concerns is making sure that we have the safety, the equipment, everything there to be able to protect the town.
okay, anybody else? Now, one more, and somebody asked, the town hall's in need of some repair.
Mm-hmm.
What's the township's plans for that?
We just passed some different things at the last trustees meeting, putting painting on. I know the brick needs a repair. That's all in the works. We just passed some things at the last trustees meeting Tuesday to move that forward. We also have, I'm getting to know it, GAR, it's the women, oh, it's a group, oh, I'm really bad, I really apologize, they're
Ladies of
Yes, thank
the
Daughters.
daughters, right.
Daughters of the American Revolution.
American Revolution.
We're excited
I
to
mean,
have
not the
them.
Revolution.
Yeah, we're excited to have
Daughters of the
them.
American, no, it's the Civil War.
I apologize, but they're moving in, there's a national program, and they're moving in, and they, it goes all the way back to the Civil War. So, they're going to be renting over there, and the building's still there for anybody who wants to rent, to have a bridal shower, baby shower, whatever, they'll be upstairs, so.
Okay. Any other questions for our trustees? You're getting off easy.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for
If
coming.
anybody wants to talk to me, I'll walk out there and talk to anybody. I'm really good at that. Well, tell me I got stand-up comedy for 5 minutes, I got that.
Appreciate you coming, you didn't have to, but
No problem.
appreciate you coming.
Cathy, you don't have to stay.
I don't. Good night. Yeah, but seriously, you can find my phone number and everything on the webpage. My phone's there, I'm there. If you need me, if I don't have an answer for you, I will get it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, with that, Mr. Peterson, would you like to get the magic balls out? Roy, why don't you look at what Gary's got and tell him which cup you want? There's a numbered ball in there, and we'll figure out who's going first.
How about that one there?
I don't want that number one. What do you got, David? David, what do you got? Okay, you're out. Barb?
I'm number 4. I got number
1, number 3.
Got 2. Oh, you got under the gun right away. That leaves David's number 4. Stays right in order. Good. All right, so once again, Dave Cruz up here in the front. You can see the sign. When you've got about 15 seconds, he will wave and try to wrap it up in that time. So with that, let's go into some of the, you have 3 minutes to, that would be Pauleva first. So Pauleva, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, and you got 3 minutes to tell us why you're running for the board.
Okay, well, is this on? Like, is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So I'm Pauleva Huttinger, I'm also known as Cece. Quick snippet about myself. I'm a Valley City resident, married to a Buckeye graduate and a 4th-generation farmer. I have 1 child that is a Buckeye alumni, and I currently have another child and 2 grandchildren in Buckeye now. I'm experienced in business ownership with 2 construction companies and 2 restaurant businesses. I have experience in property management as the office manager of a 530 home homeowners association, where I was responsible for homeowners' dues, water, sewer, trash, roadways, building structures, and lake. I also worked hand in hand with the board of the HOA in legal dealings with the final settlement of a long-running lawsuit. I also oversaw the contract and project management for relinquishing their sewer system services to Lorraine County. I was responsible for all correspondence and communication to and from the board and the residents, as well as to and from the board and their attorneys. I currently am a school bus driver that worked for Buckeye for 5 years and now drive in a neighboring district. I also worked in the cafeteria for 2 years as a sub for about 1 year as a paraprofessional. I actively volunteer in Buckeye Youth Sports, and I teach religious education at St. Martin's of Tours. Why have I decided to run as a board candidate? I have been actively attending and speaking at board meetings for the past 2 years. I attended and spoke at many FAC meetings regarding the recently failed $80 million levy, where at both I had many public questions that went unanswered. I have participated in community outreach throughout the Valley City Street Fair for the last 2 years, some trustee meetings, and my involvement with a grassroots grassroots group called ABC Advocates for Buckeye Community. During that time, I have talked to many Buckeye residents, taxpayers, and parents. I have found a real disconnect between the board and the general public. With all I have experienced, I am reminded of the phrase, if you can't beat them, join them. So here I am. I have to, in closing, thank my husband, Wayne, and all my family. They rock in so many ways and probably have no idea what they're in for. Also, my supporters and other ABC members. I know I would be here today without them, but I could not imagine doing any of it without that group of people. Their conversations, viewpoints, honesty, and time, which is truly the most valuable, are exactly what I need to succeed. I'm sure my husband would thank them too, because it gives him another outlet for me to talk to. If anybody wants to get a hold of me for any kind of questions or conversation, my phone number is 330-242-1621. My email, I got 1 second. Thanks for considering me. It's a cliffhanger.
All right, thank you. Roy, you're up, number 2.
All right. So my name's Roy Salazar. My wife and I and our family, we live right near the school. So I've got 3 kids in the district. I've got a senior, a sophomore, and a 7th grader, so we've been through the entire campus. My wife and I chose to live here 15 years ago, and over the last 10 years, I've donated thousands of hours towards Buckeye boys and girls youth sports programs. So I know a lot of people, we've played up here, we played a ton in Litchfield as well, and now that my coaching days are over, I've been looking for another way to give back to the community. Looked at a couple nonprofits, but nothing resonated as much as continuing to help the kids that I've been coaching and leading for the last 10 years. So I guess through coaching, I've been known to demonstrate integrity, and was asked actually if this is something I would consider running for the school board. That integrity included a lot of playful ribbing from parents on our team when I'd make a call that might go against the home team. But I grew up on a small farm, and you kind of get to know in these small communities what's right is right. So with that, I grew up in Clyde, which is about an hour and a half away, similar community as Buckeye. Grew up again on a small farm where we had 10 acres. We'd harvest the corn in the back, take it to the mill, feed the cows, and enjoy the circle of life. Both of my parents worked, but Clyde again was a community very similar to Buckeye. We actually had a couple facilities that were aging, and we had to work through a plan to retire one of them that had a long history and with the community. Through my history, I understand that change is difficult and it takes a little bit longer in small towns. So for me personally, I've got a business degree in human resources. I've got an MBA in operations management. I'm the director of operations for a large multinational organization, and I've got 2 facilities that I end up running. One is a union facility, one is a non-union facility. We've got about 220 employees, about a $65 million budget. So it's very similar to the business of the school here as well. Through my career, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in numerous aspects of running a business, and I've seen firsthand that there has to be a balance between collaborative planning, financial accountability, and also having a vision for the future. So with my background, I'd love to be able to help the perspective of the board and help out the community a little bit more through our current situations. I've worked on large projects, personnel issues, large and complex budgeting, and also helped work through struggles to make businesses and teams successful. So that's really why I'm running. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Thank you. David?
Yes. My name's Dave Borling. I have connections here going back 60 years. My folks, when they got married, they built their first house on Crocker Road, and I started in this building all the way up to 3rd grade. And so I have real fond memories of the Buckeye community and the schools that I went through. In 1966, our folks moved us to Litchfield. And so that caused, a little bit of disruption because we had a lot of friends here. And now I was attending a different school, but I got to see different schools. And so, and then I graduated from the senior high in 1976. I did not go to college. I went right to work. And I went through business. I had business and finance. experience. I also have blue collar working. We do industrial HVAC. My brother owns a company. And so we're crawling around on buildings, including school buildings in other districts. So we get to see a lot of what's going on there. So I am semi-retired at this point, and I was asked to run based on my experience, mainly from my township experience, which I am currently the BZA chairperson. I have 15 years of zoning behind me. Now, what does that mean? It's like when you get on any board, you have to know how to work with your other board members. You have to be able to read all of your policies, bylaws, code, everything like that, interact, and then find a solution. So that's what you need to do. A lot of folks get on the board the first time, they have an agenda, they think they're gonna change something. You need to know how to work together. You need to know how to accomplish the strategic plan that the district has, how to solve problems with the superintendent and downline. There's a lot going on with that. It's not an easy job. It isn't. And you really don't get paid much for it. Mostly volunteer your time. I know on zoning, I get paid a whopping $30 and probably put 40 hours a week in when I was doing zoning code. So, I mean, I'm passionate about this. I love this district. We're here for a lot of the same reasons. It's very rural. We like it. I remember the drive your tractor to school. I don't even know if they still have that. You know, just little now, only one or two. So I appreciate your attention, and I would appreciate your vote. And if you have any questions, you can see me afterwards, and we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Barbara?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. I am a current member of the Buckeye Board of Education, and I have served on the board for 8 years. I'm a product of Buckeye schools. I grew up in Valley City on Metzger Road and attended Buckeye my whole school career. My bachelor's degree is from Kent State University in education. My master's degree is from Kent State in gifted education and supervision. My postgraduate work is from Ashland University, where I earned a principal's license and a superintendent's license. I have been a teacher at each of the township buildings, Liverpool, York, and Litchfield. I've been a gifted supervisor in Medina City for grades K through 12. I've been an elementary principal in Medina City, and I've been a curriculum director for the Medina County Educational Service Center, and I was assigned to Buckeye Schools. At the time I was in Buckeye Schools as a curriculum director, I authored $650,000 in grants, competitive grants for the school district. I married my high school sweetheart, Gary. We've been married for 52 years. We have 2 grown sons. Brian owns and operates Gunkelaman Family Farms. We have farms in Ross County and Medina County. Our son Stephen is a pilot for United Airlines. I'm a member of Zion Lutheran Church in Valley City, where I serve as a lay leader and I do children's sermons on occasion. I want to talk to you about some of the leadership roles I've had or some recognitions I've had for my leadership. I served on the board of Project Learn in Medina, and as I said, I've served on the Buckeye board for 8 years. I was recognized as Medina County Teacher of the Year when I was teaching at Liverpool School. I was recognized as Employee of the Year when I worked for Medina County Educational Service Center. And I was part of Leadership Medina County, and I had the nice distinction of being awarded the Medina County Woman of Distinction. I am so proud to be part of the Buckeye Schools. I have a passion for education. It's what we do. It's why we have a school district, so that we can educate students. We have been able to expand programming at Buckeye over the last several years. We have an American Sign Language program. I'm going to run out of time really quickly, but we have instituted all kinds of safety protocols for our students also. I will talk about finance maybe in the questions, so we'll see how that comes later on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, one of the first questions, Roy, you'll be up first on this one. What is the greatest challenge you see facing the Buckeye district?
The greatest challenge right now is probably facilities. So we have a junior high that is 65 years old. We've got a high school that's 50 years old. I think we're all well aware of the last bond issue that did not pass. I know the board, I certainly appreciate the approach that was taken. They partnered up with the state. I think there was some really good data that was mined, which is great. But I think the community spoke, right? And it clearly did not pass. So we need to figure out, how do we adjust? How do we develop a transparent plan that involves more people and that will allow us to find a solution forward that we can move this district into? And it appears that $80 million is going to be a little too much, right? Maybe we took a little bit too big of a bite at the apple. So we're going to have to take a smaller bite. And that may mean that we have to take a few more bites and it's going to take a little bit longer, but we got to figure out what solution we can come up with that will allow us to move forward together in a positive direction.
Okay, thank you. David?
Same question?
You be next. Same question.
Same question. Maintenance and buildings is one thing, but I think the greater issue we have is communication. There has to be broader communication to every resident in the district. That's one reason that I've been hearing that the bond didn't pass. When I was standing out and talking to people along the street fair and asked them the question, were you surprised about the results? No. What do you think could have been done to improve that or change it? Communication. That's the whole thing that I see as the biggest challenge. Right now, we have the busing issue was going on, where the district was out of compliance for a bit, and there was communication that had to go out. There's a lot of parents who didn't even know what the schedules were. So again, I think communication would solve some of these problems with maintenance and so on.
Thank you. Barb, same question.
My colleagues here are all right. The biggest issue facing us going forward is facilities. We must do something. The community spoke very loudly that that plan was not one that they were willing to support, whether it has been through the dollar amount or the communication from the district. So we do have to go back and hear more from the community before we move forward. We have to do something, folks. What that is going to be maybe a scaled down plan, maybe a phased in plan over time, but the Board of Education currently is setting up the parameters to get more input from the community before we move forward. Thank you.
Pauleva?
Yeah, so, gosh, one item, that's hard to pinpoint. So I'm gonna say finances. And when I say finances, I mean because it also relates to everything we just discussed. Building maintenance, construction, I don't care what you call it. We have to get our finances in order. Curriculums and our operating levies, those are both totally related to financing and totally related directly to taxpayers' impact. Because we can't do either one of them without somehow going back to the taxpayers. We may be able to share burdens with the state in some of them, but no matter what, we need to get a clear understanding from the bottom, and I mean the bottom up, on what our finances are and where we can put them for both operating levies, which will be coming up very soon, and construction levies, which will be in one way, shape, or form. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. David, you'll be up first on this one. What programs should be instituted in our district that are not currently there now?
Well, that one could be broad if you're talking about curriculum programs or other programs. I have latitude there. I say one of the programs that I would like to know where it is an ongoing maintenance program. I'd like to see the district have that in writing. I'd like to see it implemented. I know some of that is happening right now from former Superintendent Harrison, brought on Mr. List, but it was solving problems that were 30, 40 years in the making. I don't know at this point that it's going to be consistent and it's a stick-to thing. So one of the programs that I would like to see in the district is that we have a solid maintenance, preventive maintenance plan to keep our buildings, our assets intact until we can get to another solution.
My turn. I would say for programming, we have continued to move forward with educational programming. There are always things we can add for our students. We do have college prep courses. Students can take college courses at high school and earn college credit for them, which is a nice thing for families. I think that when we talk about programs like maintenance, the one thing we need to remember is we have a $2 million maintenance budget that we spend out each year. We spend a lot of money on HVAC, we spend a lot of money on roofs, we just seal coated the driveways, so you know, there's only a certain amount of money in the pie. And 83% of our school district's finances go to pay employees and their benefits. So that leaves 17% to cover everything else.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What is the greatest, or no, I'm sorry, what programs should be instituted that are currently not in our district now? And that could be
Right.
educational or,
That's what I was wondering. So I would agree. I had requested maintenance plans several times throughout the past couple of years to no resolve. So whether they're on the books or not, I don't know. All I know is we need them. So we need at least something to start with. Again, it goes back to financing with whether we have to ask people or just dive into where we're spending money. I can't give specifics on that, but that is a very important point. New buildings or old buildings, we need maintenance. As far as programming, if it was referred to as far as school and education, I would say I don't necessarily have an answer on what I would like to see come in because I quite frankly don't know 100% of all we have to offer. I do know that when my daughter was in school, there were classes that were offered, but we didn't know about until later when it was too late to have that information to us. So what I would like to do is find out exactly what we have to offer, the college courses, the career center, any other in-between kind of classes that can be offered to our students or even homeschooled students, anyone in the community, that we can get that information to them before it's too late for them to enter.
okay, what?
Yeah, my answer I think is maybe a little bit different. I would say life skills, and it's a pretty broad category, but when you think of this generation that's in school now, right, their life is a ton different. I remember being a teenager and comparing my life as a teenager to my dad's, and there really wasn't a big difference. Maybe I thought there was. In today's day and age, being an adolescent is difficult, and they need to learn how to manage their personal finances. How do they improve their interview skills? How do you talk to somebody when it's not just a text message or through social media, right? So life is difficult for this generation. They need to focus on those fundamentals of being good citizens and understanding their income, their expenses, and how they can continue to be great citizens.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Barb, you're first. And the question is, what goals do you personally have that you would like to institute if you're elected to the board?
My goals always center around education. We are in a people business, and we're not making widgets to send out there. We are refining young folks to be responsible citizens in our community, that they will be hard workers, they will be ethical people, that they will produce once they're in our society. My goal is to make sure that those kids who come to us are safe, first of all, and that they are given a proper education. You should be proud. Medina County is the only county, or the top county in Ohio on the latest report card. I mean, that's awesome, isn't it? Should be proud.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, what goals do you personally have if you're elected to the board?
So if I was elected, I would say Barb's spot on. That was an awesome report card for sure. A lot of those things I would definitely want to oversee, of course, with the operations with the superintendent and get those kind of updates. But for me personally, as a board member, I want to see honesty, and I'm not saying everyone's a liar now, I'm just saying for me, I want to see real honesty, real transparency, not some information to some information to anyone. I just want to see it full. If community members come and ask questions, I want those questions answered. If it takes a week or 2 weeks or a month, I want follow through. I want to build that relationship with people coming to us and then have that go down the line from the superintendent down to the employees. And that includes communication, not just how we talk to people, how we get it out to people, but how we talk to people and get that information back.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind. I don't have necessarily a set agenda, but I think that the focus needs to continue to be on facilities. We talked about that already. I think talent, we have to be able to recruit, develop, and retain top talent. And with that, we have maybe a bit of a disadvantage with our budgeting restrictions. So we gotta figure out ways to get creative on that. I think the former alumni that come back, they're going to stick around, but the individuals that are coming that are not alumni, how do we get them to stick around a bit more? And really for me, the last thing is how do we come together closer as a community? So we've got to be able to bring Buckeye closer. And through my professional experience, I've come to realize that it's a lot easier to critique or throw stones at ideas than to build consensus. And that's what we need. We need to be able to pull the community together and build that consensus, because as leaders in this community, we can't just complain. We've got to be able to solve the problems.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Pauleva, you'll be up first. What is your position on school boards banning or censoring books?
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to give you full disclosure on this one. I actually came across an article the other day and it touched on this topic, and I thought this might be a hot topic at this meeting. So I did not know that question, but it's something that I thought about. And so I'm going to read what I wrote. It is not our job to push or promote or influence our own personal perspectives or opinions or lifestyles on students. That is a family's privilege. Our job is academics and to strive for excellent academic achievement, period.
Okay. Roy?
Yeah, so for curriculum, I'm not a curriculum expert, and I believe we do have a director of curriculum that the superintendent hires. My sister happened to be a director of curriculum as well. So with that, I think we have an expert on the board here within the community. And I think the process that we follow is we have a team of subject matter experts, those teachers in those areas that review the curriculum. They decide the course of study. I think those are presented to the community then over the summer. I know I've read a couple of those that they were available. I don't think that we've had a ton of adjustments from that plan. And certainly it's open. So I think that overall the curriculum, we're probably pretty close to meeting the expectations of the community.
Okay. Next question.
We can do
Oop.
that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can.
Get my notes.
Dave
Roy?
didn't get to answer the previous question either.
Oh, yeah, the previous question is,
Goals.
goals.
Yes, thank you.
Right, thanks. They used up all the good goals. Actually, I did talk to Superintendent Standard about this, is that there seems to be some division in the communities, the townships. And I talked to him at length as, how do we solve that? Because the fact that, Litchfield's over there, York and Liverpool, and all of these little intricacies and nuances that keep them separate, when the school district and the school buildings and everything that goes on in it should be a unifying factor in the community. And yet we see, heels dug in certain corners. So my goal would be to work with the superintendent, with the board, and find out how we do better at unifying the township so that Buckeye District is a unified, positive experience for everybody.
Okay,
That's the only goal I have left.
all right, thank you. And we'll move back in and pick up where we left off with Pauleva, with your position on school boards banning.
We're on curriculum.
Got everybody?
Not curriculum, beginning of the book.
Got to do that one.
Barb and Dave have to do the book one.
Maybe, should I stand over there?
You go ahead. Truthfully, I feel more comfortable.
I'm indifferent on the school district, that's the question, school district banning books, right? Okay. Because then anything it's subjective, it's like, you could say anything could get banned. I believe that as a board, we work through the superintendent, through the channels that Lori was talking about and Barb knows about, to see that these books are vetted properly. And anything that's objectionable by the persons who are vetted, bring it up. But I realize that there are some things that slip under the radar that people aren't aware of. It looks good, it sounds good, it's got an award from New York Times, and so nobody comments on it, and all of a sudden it's in there. So this is one of those tricky things. I mean, I've heard about this thing all over the United States, this topic here. I don't know that we're in those positions as some of these urban schools are. But, I think we leave it to the superintendent and downline.
And I would just say what our current process is. We do not ban books. We do have a committee in the curriculum office that reviews things so that if there's any questionable material, we know what it is ahead of time. We haven't had a problem with it at all. But there are sometimes you ask a class to read a book as a whole class, and there might be one or two parents who object to that book. And that's fine. If they object, then they are given other reading material. So it's not really a big deal, I guess, is because it has been handled in-house for a long time.
Okay. Good. Roy? Next. You've all, I think, touched on this a little bit, but we'll give you each another minute to elaborate. What is your position on a new junior high / middle school and high school and the need for it?
So I've got kids that have been through there and currently in there now. So certainly there is a need. I think we have facilities that are aging. And when you look at our competition, right, the kids' competition at neighboring school districts, we need to make an improvement. I don't have a set agenda with that. I think we need to listen to the community and kind of as Barb mentioned, with the board being able to reach out more and connect with more of the community, figure out what is that solution that we can move forward with. And it may not make as much financial sense. If it's a smaller investment up front, it may end up costing us a little bit more in the long run. But if that's what the community is looking for, then that's the path we need to head down. But I think continuing to move forward based on the work that the previous committee has done is going to be important. We don't need to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
Position on the junior high, right?
What is your position on a new junior high / middle school and high school?
Okay, I'll tell you right off the bat, I think the high school is just fine, needs maybe some updates, electrical, some other renovation. The junior high, I've heard from a number of residents say it needs to be ripped down. I've gone through that thing with other folks, and I don't know that it needs to be ripped down. My position is, one, let's maintain it. Number two, let's see if we can improve it somehow in a moderate, financially sound program. To tear it all down and make it all bright and shiny to compete with the next neighboring district, I don't think is in our plan. It shouldn't be in our plan. We don't have that kind of budget, and the taxpayers have already said, nope, we're not going for it. So it has to be a reasonable approach to this. And quite honestly, even if we started today with this, you're 4 or 5 years out from getting anywhere. So it's a long process. In the meantime, we have to maintain it.
Okay. Barbara.
We did have a facility plan that we put before the voters, and it was resoundingly defeated. So what does that tell us? Folks don't want to
go with an $80 million plan. We have to listen to our community. The plan we put out there was a visionary plan. It wasn't a plan for 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. It was a huge plan for a long time down the road. It was going to solve problems for a long time and not in immediate problems. So the junior high has to go. I'm sorry, folks, but the junior high has to go. We've done all the work and the background to know that it's going to cost us more to renovate that thing than it is to build a new one. And my time's up.
Okay, Pauleva.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything that you guys have said. We need to do something with facilities. I mean, that's obvious. New junior high, if I had my choice, I would not do a combined building, I can tell you that. Is that the route everybody wants to go with new buildings? I can't tell you that. Is it renovating the high school and doing a new junior high? I can't tell you that. But I would say again, we can start off where we left off and have those questions that people asked that did go unanswered, get answered. Do more digging, do more research. This isn't something we should just take lightly and rush into. We also have other finances that our sales tax that go to our building improvements and whatnot. We have some of that money coming back that was put on a loan for an addition that we did. We need to really see where we're gonna be at with our own finances and what we can handle. If we're getting any OFCC money back from our original building with the elementary, there's a lot of questions to be answered before we really dive into that again. But of course, something has to be done. That just does.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and David, you're up first. Do you think school board members should get directly involved with employee issues?
No.
Okay.
It's not a board member's role to be in that position. We work directly through the superintendent. You know, somebody may come to me and say, here's my story, but you can't go anywhere with it. You really can't. So the answer is no.
You are not wrong. We do, as board members, we take recommendations from the superintendent on personnel issues. We don't get involved directly with the personnel issue until it becomes hiring and firing and those kinds of things. And those go directly through the superintendent.
Pauleva.
I agreed. No, I mean, we're not here to do all that. I personally think that there is a need for better employment relations, employee relations. I won't argue that, I work there, sorry. Does that mean I would get involved if an employee came to me and said they had an issue? I would say I have to bring it to the superintendent because that's his job. I would definitely have a lot of conversations with him. I would do my best to relay what somebody may have told me so he gets maybe a perspective that may be more honest and not as scared for repercussions. But no, that ultimately is his job, supervisors' jobs, principals' jobs. But I would definitely try and help facilitate when it comes to that if I could, but I would never be able to speak on anyone's behalf to that employee.
Right.
Yep, so I would agree with, I think what's been said so far, and with Barb there as well. I think the board's responsibility is to hire the superintendent, and then as kind of the director of the district, it's gonna be up to that individual to figure out which path to take with personnel issues. So I think with the board, we would just have to figure out how you continue to support the team, the superintendent and the principals.
Alrighty, Barb, you'll be up next. The question, again, you've kind of touched on it already, but staying in line with the hierarchy, should board members be directly involved with hiring or firing employees?
The only way we're involved is from the recommendations of the superintendent. The superintendent and his supervisors will interview candidates and bring their proposed candidate to the board. We do the official hiring and dismissal if that needs to happen.
Kind of the same. I'm a questions girl, so I would ask a lot of questions. I wouldn't simply just go, that's what you think, then okay. Again, I've been there. It's hard to work at a school district, it really is. And that's not to take away from anything, but it just is. The relationships, people say it's like working for a family. And I never liked that phrase, because I thought, well, a lot of people don't like their family. I look at it as we're a team. And it's hard to open up. It's hard to be honest. It's hard when there's some people that have self-interest to really be who you want to be if you're just being I don't want to say the wrong words, but I'd ask a lot of questions, but I wouldn't interfere ultimately with the decisions that are made.
Well, could you phrase that question again for me, please?
Sure. Should board members be directly involved with hiring or firing employees?
Yeah, so I'd agree with what's been said so far. No, they should not be. That should be the superintendent. Again, we need to trust, empower them, and then ultimately support them. Certainly, I think anytime you're going to discipline or terminate an employee, there's a lot of due diligence that goes into that, right? So in business, in the school district. So being able to understand maybe the proposal that's given by the superintendent, but then continue to support them.
Okay. The last question I have, Mark, is mostly...
You mistake.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, no, we're not directly involved unless it's recommendation of the superintendent, and that's done in executive session. And I would agree with Pauleva that in employee matters, you have to know what's in front of you, and you have to ask questions. Is this everything, and not just, a superficial thing that you're making a big deal out of? So, employee relations is important, but these are handled at the board level in executive session.
Okay. And again, the last question is mostly directed for Barb. Why was there no drawing of the proposed new school buildings?
There was no drawing of the proposed new school building because it costs a lot of money to get that done. There wasn't a reason to go ahead and hire someone to do that if we didn't have the funds to move ahead. So we were trying to save money, really, and not spend the money on an architect to do all that if we didn't even have the funds or the community support to go forward with that.
Do you have a ballpark on what that would have cost?
I don't. Seth's here. Do you have a ballpark?
I'm not a candidate.
He's not a candidate. He is our president. He's not.
I know it would have been tens of thousands of dollars to just get a very basic. It wouldn't have shown any interior classrooms. It would have just literally have been a footprint, and that was it.
I don't think it would have been helpful at that time.
One we asked, well, how could I vote for something I never seen?
Right.
So, you have the answer. All right, that concludes the questions we've had submitted.
Can anybody else answer that question?
Well, if you'd like
Could
to, sure.
Yeah, so I'm going through a facility upgrade in New Jersey right now, and the architectural drawing is $80,000, right? And that's just the structural. That's going to be smaller than the school. So I think if we could find anybody that would be willing to donate that, I think certainly we would entertain that.
David, Pauleva, any comments on that?
No, that's a fair question. Anytime you put out a rendering, then you set the expectation, that's the end result.
Right.
And in many cases, depending on, construction and cost or whatever, things can change, and then all of a sudden, what happened to this?
Right.
Now it looks like that. So I think, in one respect, the board was trying to cast a vision at the time, and it was a long vision, to see and gauge what the response would be from the community. And so we got it. So now we know. But Roy, you're right. 80, 100,000, and then if it doesn't, we don't get the money, then all we'd hear about is, why did you blow $80,000? Or something that wasn't gonna get funded.
Pauleva.
I agree, it's smart to say a lot of those as far as the reasons. I would only add that I think part of what, some of the questions when I talked to people was, not necessarily having a drawing, but is it gonna be 2-story versus 1-story? Is it gonna be a sprawling, or is it gonna be, what's it gonna be as far as just the structure? The inside could be, determined at a later date, plus we had OFCC regulations that were gonna rule that anyways. But when it came to like roof, if you're talking 2 stories, that's a different roof span, or a different roof coverage, and long-term maintenance and kind of those things, heat rising, all those kind of stuff. So I think when it came to drawings, those were some of the concerns that I heard from people and then in the future, future expansion, if it's a 2-story, how you could expand on each side with future growth, so.
Okay.
Not that that was a bad choice because of the funding, but that was some of the concerns I heard.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll open it up to the audience. If you would like to come up to the microphone, you are more than welcome. If you've got a soft, timid voice like me, you're welcome to ask your question from your seat. Do we have anybody out here that would like?
Either first one. Barbara.
Yes.
You had mentioned, if I heard you right, that 83% of the school budget is labor and benefits. Do you have any idea how much of that 83% is administrative?
I do not. That's a total for any employees and their benefits. And we have certified employees and classified employees. So I do know that how they count administrators is different than, you think that the superintendent and the principals and those folks would be your administrators, but sometimes if you have a prevention coordinator, depending on their license, they're counted as an administrator. So every school district's administrative costs would be somewhat different.
Anybody else care to? All right, next question. Ron?
I have one. I'm Ron Knight from Valley City. We've heard that 83% of the money goes to teachers and administration. Whether that's enough or not, you'd have to ask the teacher. That leaves 17%. And I've heard talk about we need to increase the maintenance. Well, I imagine that 17% is pretty well distributed over a number of cost centers. What cost center or area would you consider reducing its finances in order to increase the maintenance budget?
Who's he asking?
I was gonna say, what's the order?
I think one of the way to phrase that too is you got 17% spendable money. What do you spend it on? Now, there's programs, there's education, there's continuing education. How flexible is the board with that 17%? Where does it go, and how much of it is really changeable?
There isn't a lot that's changeable. Of course, we can move money around, but that includes your instructional supplies, your heating, your electric bill, all of those things are included in that 17%. Just to put it in perspective, the state average for salaries and benefits for a school district is at 81%, and Buckeye's at 83%. So we're pretty close to the state average. Now, if you take Medina County schools and look at it, I bet it's a little bit different there. If you go to Cuyahoga County schools, you're going to have a higher percentage in employee costs. Their salaries are much higher than our salaries at Buckeye. It's a balancing game. Think about it this way. I just want to tell you, well, maybe I'll wait for the next question.
Okay, we'll have a summation.
Okay.
You were raising your hand.
Could we elaborate a little bit more?
Right, you want
Yeah, so I think with that, when you look at the cost structure of anything, a business, a school, there's going to be times where you have to figure out, okay, when do we stop repairing this piece of equipment? And I think that's the question that we're answering is when is kind of enough? And part of that is going to be the board's decision. I think part of it would be kind of what we're going to do with facilities as well. But we've got to be able to figure that out and get creative. But salaries are going to continue to go up, right? The cost of replacing a piece of equipment is going to continue to go up. So we've got some hard decisions that are going to be in front of us that we're going to have to work through together.
David or Pauleva?
Yes, So, when you give those ratios and the pie, those are either current or just very recently reported figures. Moving forward very shortly, we will be, again, we had, I'm gonna say the wrong word maybe, but a loan, or we are making payments on addition that we had where part of our sales tax money goes to pay off. That debt will be paid off shortly, and then we will have more money to be able to put towards the maintenance. Also, within the last 2 years, when Mr. Harrison was our superintendent, he was building staff to staff these buildings that he envisioned, and some of them were higher paid and larger grade levels and higher, salary positions. We also either reopened or created almost 12 new positions, and between ESSER funds that covered some of them. Oh, with the ESSER funds, some of those positions are gonna have to be reconsidered because they were specifically created with ESSER funds. And along with that, since the other plan didn't come along, we really need to really evaluate the administration positions that we opened up as well. And where that's gonna leave us and how that can help us budget is to be determined before we really say everything goes up. We really need to dig. We need to dig.
David, comment?
Well, the other thing is, the district's kind of like fixed income, like people are on fixed income. We've got a tax base, and expenses are rising, and you can only shave so much. And we have a great treasurer right now who's got plans, 5-year forecast. She goes through the numbers like crazy, floats them up through the superintendent to the board. But at some point, the reality is going to hit. We need more money, and that's going to be one that no one's going to want to hear real soon, just because of the result of the bond. So at some point, the district's going to say, we can't cut anything else. We just can't. So it's time for a new levy. And that's the one that you guys are going to hear, probably in the next year or two. It's just going to get there.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question?
I got lots of questions.
Oh.
My name is Connie Sir Lewis. I live on Hamilton Road. I'm Barb's neighbor. I keep hearing about community. I want to know how you guys are going to connect with the community, because I never heard word one about any of this, because my kids are all graduated. Am I no longer part of the community? I'm paying you guys taxes. So I'd like to know how you connect with the community. Number 2, do any of you have a checkbook? And do you know how to balance it? I still use mine.
Okay, Pauleva, you were next up in the house.
So the first question was connecting with the community. So that was part of my job with the HOA. I did a lot of communicating with the community, mostly through a newsletter and mailings. What I would at least hope or say to start is to try and do something to reach out to people and say, how do you want us to connect you? Because I know as a parent, I have to fill out these forms and I say I want a text or I want an email or whatever I want. And I get that. Other people may not get that. So is it going back to some people requesting snail mail? It may be. Is it a quarterly newsletter? I don't know. Is it social media as part of it? Probably. I'm not a big fan of it, but probably. We really need to look at all the different ways of communicating and kind of narrow it down and reach out to the other people. I've done it with the ABC. Honestly, we go down to Valley City and we literally stop people as they're walking, ask them if they're a Buckeye taxpayer. They keep walking, we follow, and then we engage in conversation eventually. So I don't want to do that as the board representative, unless we're all doing it, but there's ways we can reach out.
Okay, Roy?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think throughout the U.S. we struggle with communication, right? I think it was brought up. I think Dave shared that earlier. I can tell you in business, we go through the exact same scenario, right? So some people prefer email, some prefer social media, some prefer snail mail, reading it in the newspaper. So we have to figure out how do we connect to figure out how people would like to hear about it, right? And how would they like to understand those issues? The flip side of that is when you do hear about something, I certainly appreciate everybody in here coming, but when you have these meetings, there's the attendance there is usually rather light. So So we got to figure out again, how do we connect? How do we get the message out to more people? Whether that's, again, meetings, gatherings, or whatnot. But we've got to find a solution. That's an issue. It's real, and it's not just the Buckeye school issue. That's throughout the state and a variety of industries.
David?
Communication, I spoke about that earlier. In fact, it's in the board policy section, if you can find it on the website. And it says, "The board declares and hereby reaffirms its intent to maintain two-way communications with citizens of the district. The board shall keep them informed of the progress and problems of the school district, and the citizens shall be urged to bring their aspirations and concerns about the district to the attention of this body." I live in the district. I don't have grandkids who go to the school. I get nothing. Nothing, zero. So that's a missing link here. There's parents I talk to who have kids in the school, they get information galore. Then there's the next ring out who had, some direct connection recently, and they still are in the know. But, I've been living in this township again for 20 more years, and I get nothing. No newsletter, nothing. Nothing. That's gotta be solved somehow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can always do a better job of communicating. One of the things I said at a board meeting to my colleagues was, we need to get information out to my generation because we go vote. Hey, it's a day out for us. We go vote, we have lunch, it's a day out for us. So we have to make sure we get information to our folks who no longer have connections to the school. It's really hard to do. You used to be able to put things free in the newspaper, inserts and things like that. If you were a school district, well, you can't do that anymore. They want you to buy the space. How many people actually get newspapers anymore? I don't know. We try a lot of online things, but then there are folks who don't look at our website. So it's just a problem.
I have a checkbook, but I'm not allowed to have it.
Do you know how to balance it?
She would absolutely tell you no, which is why I'm not allowed to have it. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Ashley Long. I'm a resident and an employee of the district, and I have a couple questions. So I did attend a couple of the FAC meetings for the new school buildings. I asked questions and got some looks when I was there. But one thing I noticed is I didn't really get answers about the facility questions I was asking because the superintendent was already set on going a different direction. I think that kind of leaves a bad taste in the community mouth, And then when we had the tours of the buildings, there was some comment made to divide our different districts. Like, we have a bunch of old farmers in where I live, and I'm proud of that. But when you tell an old farmer that they can go apply to get help with food so they can pay for a new school, that doesn't go over very well. And that helps create the divide. So my question is what are you going to do moving forward to change that now mindset that has been presented with the last bond issue? And if you're going to improve communication through our website, when is our website going to become more user-friendly? Because we have one of the worst school district websites I've ever been on.
Roy, you're up first.
Yep, so I think a couple things there. I think with low and fixed income, it is a challenge. Any increase with operating or with a bond issue is going to be challenging. So that's certainly something that we have to consider and continue to communicate with the group on, the community on. I think from a communication standpoint, I think was the second question. So how do we continue to communicate?
How do we improve our website so people that don't have children in our school district can pull information off of it? I mean, I'm a parent and I struggle with the website.
Yep. I thought there was another question before that. I think with the website, we have to update it, and I don't know what the solution is on that one, other than people that have that responsibility functionally within the school. We probably should look at them a little bit more. I think we also have a couple media classes. Maybe we could lean on that. But that would be my 2 cents.
David?
Yes. Yeah, the website is an issue. When I decided I was going to get into the race way back in December and January, I went on the Buckeye website, and I know I was being told, hey, you can find these different things that the board, and it took me like 2 days to find it. And to this day, there's still links that don't work and so on. So I agree with you that it's a nice website, it looks cool, but it doesn't function well. It's not too friendly. As far as the division in the community, we burned a lot of capital with this bond, a lot of goodwill. I think it was ill-timed, and there was headwinds against it, and the board went in and said, okay, we're gonna do it anyway. That is gonna take a lot to get it back. And those people that are out in the rural area that have farms and whatever, and they're looking at CAUV and, how do we pay for everything? Yeah, we gotta work hard, really hard, to get that trust back, that vision back for them.
The website needs work. I guess, to be completely honest, a lot of school districts hire a communications coordinator. We do not have one. We have chosen not to spend our money on that, and maybe that is something we look at in the future. We have technology folks, but they run the system and run the classroom programs, and they do not specifically run the website. So it would take, we've tried it with student volunteers, it doesn't work, there's no reliability there. To have it be wonderful, it would have to have a technology coordinator who was specifically designed to do communication for the district, and that's an honest answer.
I asked this for our purpose too, in our group. Pauleva.
So hold on a second, we talked about website and then the sour taste?
Yeah.
Okay. Website, yes, it totally needs help. And to Barb's point a little bit, if that's an issue, which I don't know exactly what the issue is, I know we spent money on a communications company. I don't know what their rule, what they communicate for us, so I'd have to look at that before I could say who's really in charge of that. But it does need work. And honestly, if it's a matter of budgeting, I would rather say then let's just go to as simple as possible, because simple sometimes is just the best. Like I know for board meetings and agendas, it just used to be on an Excel spreadsheet with the date. You'd click on it and it would open. Now we have board docs, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if we can't do it right, then maybe we should consider going back a little simpler until we can. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, I need more information. The bad taste in your mouth? No.
Another whole meeting with that one.
It was, so don't we get 2 minutes? We should get 2 minutes.
A show of hands here, how many people remember the fire department here used to put out the smoke signals 3 or 4 times a year? Mailed it out. How many people here remember that? Okay. How many people in here go on Facebook? About the same number, but different hands. How many people remember the Valley City Community Group sent a mailing out to everybody earlier in the year, would save the dates and frog jump and Christmas in the Valley? How many people remember that? Okay, so well, printed material, people read. All right, that was a curiosity out of us, because we're always thinking about a way to communicate better to what's going on. Other questions? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Roger Knoll, Liverpool. If you guys were on the board today, or this is going to be a sore subject with busing, do you see any improvement whatsoever in getting drivers, showing availability of getting people? I know we're losing drivers faster than you're getting, and that's a fact. When I first came here 36 years ago, we probably had 27 routes, 28 routes. We're down to, I don't know, Karen, what do we got? 12? Less than half. Every school is in the same problem. We're nothing new here. But somebody's got to take the bull by the horns, do some different things, and get drivers into this district. nobody says we gotta lead all the way, but somebody's gotta make that first decision to get drivers here. Because I don't work there anymore, I go by the school, there are so many parents picking their kids up now. And I can tell you, I eat breakfast with a lot of older guys, and they feel that if they've gotta go to the school and pick up their kids, and I'm not getting the busing, the kids are going to the school late, getting out late, why would they even pass the levy? Why would they even do that? If they're not getting busing, they're not getting that benefit whatsoever. So you guys are gonna have to come up with something, and I'm not saying that's gonna happen your first year, it's not gonna happen. But we've gotta make changes, you've gotta do something for busing.
David, you would be up first for comment if you wish.
They did. At the last board meeting, and Barb, you can speak to this too, they introduced some short-term fixes on how to get some drivers, sub-drivers in. And again, I've heard this problem and seen this problem from other districts for years. It's hitting Buckeye pretty hard right now. The issue is something else that I look deeper into. A lot of our drivers were from the community. They know the community. They know everybody, and they wanted to do it. I have a Class B. I could do it. But at $15 an hour, the responsibility is just not going to do it. You know, that's a tough one. There's a lot of responsibility as being a bus operator inside, outside, the machine itself, the weather conditions, and you're splitting your day up. So it's hard. It takes a disciplined, very passionate person to want to drive. Really, they do. And so it's a long-term fix if we can do it.
It's not just a Buckeye problem. It's not just an Ohio problem. It is a national problem. My sister was just here from Texas, and she said they cannot get bus drivers no matter what they do. I talked to the superintendent this week. He said we have 2 in training. That's hopeful. That's 2 more than we had at the beginning of school. There are certain jobs out there that people don't want. We see it in restaurants. We see it in manufacturing. We see it in hospitals. My daughter-in-law is a pediatrician. She said her nursing staff is shorter than it's ever been. Thank you. Oh.
I'll take those. Okay, so yeah, I'm a bus driver, worked at Buckeye. Not all districts are suffering, but many, many are. This is quite frankly a topic that I would dive really deep into an executive session, because there is a lot of problems. There just is. It is not just about pay. It is a lot about children. Who does want to drive those kids? Honest to John, it is a constant yelling and bailing and correcting. The drivers at Buckeye do not get enough support. I'll tell you that right now. I won't tell you where or from who, but they're not getting support. And that is a big deal. It's not going to get a single driver, permanent or sub. Again, it would be an executive session conversation that I would be having with this, but a lot of levels to this. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah, so certainly I think driving a bus, I would agree, CC, it's an underappreciated skill. I drove one in college when I was working my way through there, but this is, I agree with Barb, this is not a Buckeye busing issue, it's a national labor shortage. I know you referenced Texas. I know it's in school districts all over nearby here, Columbus, Toledo, New Jersey, it's all over. So we do have some short-term fixes. I know I read in the paper in the last meeting as well, Dave, right? So I think we've increased pay on temporary drivers. We're using a recruiting company. I think the school district is doing everything they can to advertise. It's everything that everybody else that is looking for hourly employees is doing. So I think that fundamentally they're doing the right things there. We probably have to look a little bit deeper at fundamental changes next year and how do we, again, with a limited budget, there's only so many options that you can have. So that would be my 2 cents. It's going to have to be a deep conversation, but probably something's going to have to fundamentally change. Would be my 2 cents.
Other questions? Everybody's satisfied, heard everything you always wanted to know. This is your opportunity.
Can I re-ask a question?
Pardon?
Can I re-ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna re-ask my sour taste question. So I can get the answers across to everybody, because I think you missed that one too.
Okay.
So there were some comments made through the FAC meetings and the tours to help divide, I guess, some of people that are in the schools versus the older, community members. So what are we gonna do to improve that before we vote for another bond issue?
To improve what? I'm sorry.
I guess.
Dividing the groups?
The dividing the groups and the comments that were already made, what are we gonna do to overcome those moving forward?
Okay, so I think it's very similar to the answer I gave earlier. When we take a look at what those next steps need to be, we're gonna have to involve more of the community and get that feedback and understand what the community has an appetite for. I think in dividing those two groups, I don't know who did it, I wasn't there. I think fundamentally they are different, right? So I think the concerns of one group is gonna be different than the concerns of another, so that may have been the purpose in trying to divide those. But it's gonna come down to communication. So how do we include that entire group in a multiple of ways and make sure that they understand through either mailings, right, social media, let's get the group together and hear what the team has to say, what the community has to say. Because if this is gonna pass, we need the majority of the community. And if you have an opinion far on one side or the other, somebody is not gonna get the answer that they're looking for. But as a community, we've gotta be able to come together and take that positive step forward.
David, comment?
You're referencing the FAC meetings where you met in person, is that, and they divided you into groups, those things?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the comments that have made about like low-income elderly households,
I'm not, who was making these comments?
farming households.
Who was was the board making these comments? Was the superintendent?
The board
making-
was not making the comments, but the comments were being made at tours and stuff, and they weren't, I guess, squashed, so I think it created animosity going forward with the bond issue, if that helps clear it up.
Again, I not know the context of how that happened, I'm sorry, because it sounds like some people said certain things about where they live, and other people were saying, no, if you live here, you should want this new bill. I don't know, I might be a little lost on the question, I'm not getting it. Sorry.
We have a for and against group in there that hasn't been healed or addressed.
I think it was people who probably would have voted yes, but the way they were dismissed when they were asking questions as, oh, you're just a poor farmer, instead of worrying about how you're going to, or why they should pay the extra money to something, especially when they haven't had anyone in the schools for years, like why should I pay it? And if you'd probably given them a good reason, most of them probably have deeper pocketbooks than everyone else, they would have voted yes, but when they were told, oh, well, you can't afford it, instead of just asking, like, why are you asking this? Well, if you can't afford it, just go see about getting government assistance to pay for your regular bills so that you can pay for the school. So that made a lot of people who would have voted yes or were on the fence vote no.
So you guys are kind of asking, what's the board gonna do to try and heal some misinformation that was out there, comments that were perhaps made? There is something that has to be done to bring the community back as one again.
Yeah.
If they were answering from, there was a consultant group or something that came in and did this. If that group was allowing that to happen, well, that can't do that anymore, it really can't. But, that divide is there in the people's minds. That is, like I said before, that's a lot of capital that got burned up and really, really difficult to rebuild unless you put forth a really good plan that, kind of wraps your arms around everybody in the district. I said to the superintendent when I met with him, why is there a divide in this community? It should be unifying. Well, those kinds of things are what's creating it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the comments that were made. They were never shared with me, so I can't speak to that. I can say that we just need to listen. This is a time as we regroup to try and engage our community once again and find out what people are willing to support and then move forward. We can't do it without you folks. I mean, 68% of our income comes from local taxes. So we need you. You know, we can't do it without you. And I do apologize on behalf of administration and board if people felt that they were put off and their answers weren't given. They deserve answers. And I think sometimes what happens in these situations is maybe the administrative team had done so much research in this that they really believed that they knew where they were going with this. And the communication was lacking because it didn't encompass people. And that's what we need to work on.
Comment?
Oh, jeez. People are gonna have their opinions. The FAC, I'll be honest with you, I asked a lot of questions and I didn't get answers. And I was told this is not the direction we're going. Now, did I go out and spread those rumors on Facebook? Absolutely not. You could have just watched the video if you wanted to. But those kind of things that do happen is what makes us lose the trust. Period. Being dismayed or discredited or just told no when a community member comes, that's what does it. And people see it, people hear it, people read about it. The best way to start any kind of healing is to listen and clear communication. And when I say clear, I'm gonna go back to simple. Simple communication, clear communication, answering the questions.
I think it was, the question may have been phrased a little differently. Can I elaborate a bit on my answer? Yeah, okay. I think with this, the answer is generally the same, right? Is we still have two divisions or multiple divisions out there within the community. We've got to be able to bridge those gaps. How do we pull the teams together and come together as a community positively to build that future for us? That's really what it comes down to. The goal, and you're never gonna see 100% yes vote, right? There are gonna be dissenters, but we've got to figure out how we come together and involve everybody throughout that community. And that's something I agree, we need to listen, and we need maybe a little bit of a cultural change within the community, the school, on how we do that. How do we listen to each other and make sure that we're all being heard and participating. It's not easy to do that, especially in a small town. I know I've led that through large businesses, but it's going to be complicated. But that's certainly something that we're going to have to get through.
A little helpful?
Can I have one more thing? Sure. Absolutely. The community has to take responsibility as well. It's going to start with better communication to the community, but the community does have to be involved as well. I spend a lot of hours at those FAC meetings, a lot, for myself, because I wanted to know what was going on firsthand. I spread whatever information that I believe to be true based on what I witnessed, the facts, the story, what I saw, what I witnessed, what I asked. And community does have to take some responsibility. But again, if they know that we're being open and they can build that trust, that's where you're gonna get more results.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more. This is gonna be for you, Barb, because nobody else is on the board. Who contacted who? Did FAC contact Buckeye or did Buckeye contact FAC?
It's hard for me to remember exactly how that went, but we asked the Ohio Facilities Commission for information. And it's not only schools that work with the Ohio Facilities Commission. It is large public entities that work with the Ohio Facilities.
The elementary is coming to the point where it's almost done, and I wanted to know if they contacted us because they want us deep in debt again.
No.
All right.
I can say no to that.
All right.
Other questions,
Richard Hill. So when the program started, looking into a new school, a new building, and all the questions and the meetings that started, I heard about it, didn't know anything about it, and I went up to the board office and asked, what are these meetings? And it was explained to me that it's a process in going through to see what we're gonna do and what we're gonna build. And I said, well, how come I wasn't invited? I've been in this community since 1955. And even back then, I was accused of being a move-in. And, oh, you can come to it, but I never got an answer why I wasn't notified. So I went to the meetings, and I'm looking at people. I don't believe there was anybody over 45 years old there. And they all had kids in school, but there was no older guys or older people like me. Through every single meeting, all the ones that the superintendent, you keep talking about how the community needs to come together. That's a lot of empty stuff. What you needed to is talk about how the board is going to respond to the people, to the questions that they ask, that they don't get answered. The community is treated like, I don't know, for a better choice of words, I won't say anything, but they're ignored. They're just flat ignored. There's public comment at the board meeting, no answers. I go to the Township Trustee meeting and we have great discussions with the trustees. Back and forth, people ask questions, they get answers. You go to a board meeting, nothing.
I guess I will address that. Since I'm the current board member, I can address that. The procedure at our meetings is, it's not a public community meeting. It's not a dialogue meeting. A board meeting is not that. A school board meeting, no matter where you live, a school board meeting is a meeting in public, and there is a time for public participation. If people raise questions, we take those questions, and then someone should be getting back to you with an answer. Now, does that always happen? I would hope it does. I have seen email responses. Our former superintendent, Jeffrey Harrison, would copy us sometimes on the response that he sent to people. So I knew that there were responses going out. Did everyone get a response? I can't promise you that. I hope so.
Can anybody go?
Pauleva?
Okay.
I experienced that same thing at the meetings. I've spoken many, many times at the public meetings. Sometimes I would get an answer, usually when I hit a nerve, they'd say something, but you're right, and that's why I'm saying these questions need to be answered. I'm not the only one with these questions, and that is really a lot of my motivation to run for the board. I go to them and then I feel like I'm pestering. I ask the question again, or who is supposed to give me the answer? There's never a direct answer or a direct response. And it has to stop. It just has to. Or just take it out. I don't know. That is a time for the public to speak to our members. And they should get that respect and an answer back.
Right?
Yeah, so I think one of the questions was how did the first group get selected? I think it did start small and it continued to grow. I assume, I don't know, that it started with people who were more associated with the school initially, but it certainly, I think it continued to grow. I think the solution to that, it can't be empty promises, right? It can't be that we're going to try to listen. We actually have to do that. We have to talk to the community, we have to get that feedback, and we have to be able to put plans together that are going to align with that feedback and move us in a positive direction is what it comes down to. And if we don't do that, we need to change, right? That approach needs to change. If we don't do that, we should expect the same result. So we need to be able to listen, we need to be able to come together differently and be able to make sure that some of those areas that maybe felt like they were in the corner are listened to. Otherwise, we are gonna see the same result, and the answers may not everybody's gonna agree with the solution, right? But being able to talk through it and civilly and be able to have a conversation is gonna be important. That's how we gotta be able to work together to move forward.
David?
Well, the board meetings, as Barb said, do have a section for public comment, and it is clear, 3 minutes is all you get, and there's rarely a response unless one of the board members or somebody just wants to hit the nerve back. But as far as those open meetings, like the special meeting we had on transportation, there was a lot of dialogue there, because that's a different type of meeting. And with the FAC, the tours and everything like that, I was at some of those, and I did get the sense that this was being just, here, this is the way we're going. I don't care what your opinion is, we're going this way. And that was burning bridges right from the beginning, and that's when I was saying, headwinds were already popping up here, nobody was getting answers. And we got the result then. But those are difficult things, and Roy, you're right, we have to change that environment, that culture. When people ask questions, even at the board comments, somebody's got to get back to that resident and say, we heard you, here's the answer. They have to.
Rob?
I'd like to add my observations to what line of thinking that Mr. Hill was talking about. I was not an active participant in this last fund drive, but I had my fingers in it, and I was more interested in observing than participating. The meetings that Jeff had were good. People could ask questions, whether they got answers or not depends on the individual, I think. But my observation is that many of our residents won't go to a public meeting. They're comfortable at home in front of the TV. I say that because about a week before election, I was in a couple of different groups, mostly seniors. I said, you guys all ready to vote? Vote, what's coming up to vote for? And I told them about the bond issue, and it was the first they had heard. I then listened carefully to an older person who I respect, has always supported everything the school wanted to do. She heard from a reliable source the most gosh-awful 180-degree out of reality on a number of these key issues. One of which was, why in the world is there no plan for the building? Well, I heard the answer, but it didn't get out there. It got out there and totally distorted. Now, I do not have the answer to how the school board can get out to all these hundreds or thousands of people that don't want to go to a meeting. We had Jeff here across the hall specifically to bring it to Valley City. We had 8 or 10 people, maybe. And I've experienced this a lot, all of us have, as we try to promote programs. You can't reach these people. I don't know how to do that. I'm just trying to offer that observation as hopefully helpful. I do remember 30 years ago, a bond levy that passed. My daughter and I were part of a bunch of crazies that volunteered to go door to door to door to door. This was after like 3 or 4 failures. That worked. We did escape the fire-breathing dragon lady that came to one door. But maybe it has to resort down to a little more contact by trained volunteers.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it a board member's job, if you will, to be the liaison between the community and the superintendent? And if you were not making contact with the community, I think if the community had been part of that FAC, you wouldn't have had to put a levy out there. And if you guys are not communicating with all of us out here, you're failing your job.
I guess what I want to say is, personally, I work really hard for the Board of Education and for Buckeye Schools, and I have my entire life. I communicate as well as I can communicate. I think as a whole, we can always do better. I've said that. But folks, to be honest, it's real easy to be the Monday morning quarterback and tell us what we should have done. And it's hard to get involved at the very beginning and help make the plan going forward. We had offered so many meetings, public meetings, where anyone could attend. You are not going to put together a facilities committee that has 6,000 people on it. You're not going to come to any conclusion that way. So key stakeholders were originally invited to the meeting. Mr. Hill wasn't invited, but I'm sure other people were. We don't know who wants to be on the committee. We put it out there. We sent surveys. We did everything we could, we thought we could at the time to get people involved. Just like Rod Knight says, people don't go to meetings unless it's setting a fire in their own home. So I guess I just want to say, I feel personal about this, Connie. I take your comments very personally because you're my neighbor, but never once have you come to my house to talk about it, you know. You know, I mean, you have to, it's a two-way street, and you have to have conversation both ways. So that, I guess that's all I want to say about it.
I could share a little bit with it as well. I agree again, and I shared this earlier, the same in business is here, right? Communication is a two-way street. We can tell people that, you know, a policy is gonna change in a week, and people are still gonna forget. To your point though, right, we can say, hey, there's $100 underneath your chair, and I bet everybody will grab that, right? They're not gonna forget that. So it's gotta be important to them. So a couple things there, which we've already talked about, but we have to get clear messaging out to the community to get that feedback. That absolutely has to happen. I think on top of that then, we need to find a way to get some community momentum around this, right? And it can't be different factions. We gotta be aligned, and we've gotta be able to move this forward in a positive direction. That's what it comes down to. It may mean going door to door. It may mean flyers. It may mean social media. It may mean email. We gotta throw everything we can at it. But first, we have to get the feedback from the community and kind of put this last one behind us. It was a learning opportunity. We understand what an option is, but it's not the option the community wants. How do we figure out what that next step is and move forward?
When did we actually start the process of this $80 million bond issue? What was the very first meeting? When was that?
I think there were, well, I know, there was a lot of inside conversation, you know, among administration and folks about where we should go with this, how we should begin it, that kind of thing. The very first facilities meeting was probably a year in, well, maybe they weren't called the facilities committee at that time. It was probably a year and a half before it really got going.
So could you give me a date?
I can't, off the top of my head.
In 2020, 2021, 20...
Well, this went down in May of 23, so it would have been 21. We would have started talking about that.
Okay.
I have a question for Barb, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you, Seth, too. So, I apologize. I know he's not up there, but it's kind of for both. So, I went to the FAC meeting where we were, like, drawing on the things and doing the tables of dialogues about the buildings. And in that meeting, the Superintendent Jeff Harrison had brought up a tour of different schools so people could go see layouts or outsides of buildings since we didn't have a drawing, correct? And in that he said, sign up on this piece of paper with your name and your email and you would be contacted to do a tour. So I put my name and email down to go on a tour. I think it was North Olmsted or Hillsdale, correct? And I I put my name and email down. I received one email in which I replied. So it was at like 4 o'clock, and obviously I'm a bus driver, so I can't be there at 4 o'clock. But I emailed back. I never got a response. And then I found out through Facebook that they did end up doing a tour of Hillsdale, but I never knew of the, I guess, revamped date or time that they ended up touring it, because they did end up posting pictures. So, I mean, there was some outreach to do a tour. I signed up. I received one email. I think I was the only person to respond. If I remember correctly, Jeff said one person responded, and that was me. But then they did end up doing a tour, and I wasn't included. So I guess, like, where did that ever end up going?
I have no knowledge of that. There's nothing I can say to that.
I mean, we could definitely talk offline. I want to
Okay.
keep it to the candidates for tonight.
Any other questions? Communication seems to be the word of the night, as it is in every business, every household, we yell at our kids for not communicating. I would be remiss, as the Valley City Community Group, we are the ones who do Frog Jump, Movie in the Park, Christmas in the Valley, the fireworks. And we are always looking for new people who would like to get involved with us, help out with things, sponsor things. Anybody in the green shirt in here, if you would like to know more about what we do, we are a 501c3 tax-free charitable organization. We give two $2,000 scholarships to graduating seniors from Buckeye. One this year from Buckeye, the other was the Career Center, but a Buckeye student. We have a lot of fun, we do a lot of good things. If you'd like to get involved, you are invited. Just see to it, give us your name, number, email, and it's kind of like the mafia. Once you're in forever. So, with that, thank you all very much for being here. It's always hard to sit up there and catch the darts. Thank you all for being here. This should be a crowd of 500 people, which shows what happens when you have meetings. So.
Let me throw one thing out. ValleyCity.org is our website. I maintain that. I try to keep it up to date. We're on Facebook, Valley City Community Group. Follow us. We keep that up more up to date than we do the website. That's my fault. The information about when this will be broadcast will be posted as soon as Armstrong gives me that information. Should be this week.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. Drive safe.